don't get just as brainwashed as the general public. When I was young, when I first started studying journalism, I was like, yeah, my goal is to work for the BBC. Ask me now if someone offered me a job at the BBC, I would spit in their face. There is no way I'm ever going to work for those bastards. But yeah, no, I think I feel like obviously you've got the odd few people who are like very aware of what the BBC does, but then you do have people who are just like, what, young people who've been offered a job by the BBC, they love journalism, and then only 5 years down the line do they realize they're like, wow, I've been feeding the public absolute bullshit.
Hi everyone. Before we start, I want to take a minute to talk about my next book. You may have heard about the story of GameStop in January or February and thought it was all over. You're sadly mistaken. Unfolding online has been a clash between the corrupt practices of Wall Street and the hive mind of the internet. It's a hot, raging information war pitting retail investors against financial giants swimming in corruption and fraud. The trailer is at the end of this podcast, but if you want to help crowdfund the book or just find out more, you can sign up to my mailing list to get access to a preview of chapter 1, or go to whenmoon.com to read more about the book. The first 200 people to pre-order the book will get a free pack of To the Moon crayons with their book. I just want to make a quick mention of our sponsors. Namecheap are one of the cheapest places on the internet to get a domain name for your next website. I've used Namecheap for all the sites I've ever purchased and have found it really easy to use. Spreaker are a rapidly growing platform for podcast recording, publishing, and monetization, with pricing plans as low as $7 per month. A cheap way to host your podcast and start earning from your back catalogue of shows. Finally, ExpressVPN is the internet's most trusted VPN. Protect your privacy and watch and view content that is location locked. You could even try watching Netflix from a different country. And right now, they're offering 35% off 12 months of ExpressVPN. Please use the links in the description below if you want to support the show. Anyway, here's the podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Chatter. Today is the first time I have got to do one in person in like a whole year, which is very, very exciting. And I'm here speaking to Klaudia Fior. Fior?
That is correct, yeah. It's like Dior but with an F.
Okay. Is that how you explain it to people?
Yeah.
Like, is that like
it makes me feel very fancy, yeah.
So we're here to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. Probably starting with the climate change report and just so how fucked are we?
Well, according to the report, we are very fucked. I think this is the first report that's just straight up said humans are to blame. Every other report before this has kind of tried to sugarcoat it, being like, yeah, it's like somewhat linked to industrial consumption, but now they've literally started it off with like, yeah, humans are to blame, this is our fault. The thing is though, humans are to blame, but I think it's more billionaires, like the 1%, than just the general public. I don't think we can put down me throwing a piece of plastic on the floor and compare it to the fact that they just took a flight into space like a couple of weeks ago. Do you know what I mean? That's burns as much fossil fuels as about how many cars in one sitting. So obviously it's our mass consumption as well that's causing the problem and stuff like that, but there are a lot of things that billionaires are doing that we're just letting them slide by with, and I think that's the main cause of the issue. But we're fucked. There's no other way to put it.
I mean, you like honed in on something that really frustrates me sometimes. Like people like lecture someone about like the non-reusable coffee cup that they've used, and it's like, I think it's 100 corporations are causing 70% of all greenhouse gas emissions. It's just like, maybe we should think about blaming them and not the person who's like, I don't know, using their petrol car to get to work to, you know, survive.
I know, it's also like when people are like, oh, don't buy plastic bags, and I'm like, how about you start getting at the people who are like selling me fruit in plastic packaging? Why is my fruit wrapped in plastic packaging? Fruit has its own packaging. Like, why are my bananas packed in plastic? I'm literally going to peel them when I get home. There is no need. You wash your fruit anyways, your fruit and vegetables. There's so many things that can be adapted that are just very obvious that would help the climate, but the government is just not doing it, and you can't see, and that's why I feel like you can't really be harrowing down on individual people being like, oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, because it's very easy to get caught up. And I said recently to Dan, I was speaking to Dan, and I said to him that I think it's very easy to be like, yeah, recycle, do this, that, and the other, but it's not easy to do if it's just not something that you're used to doing. And I compared it to the fact that I went to Portugal recently, and even in Portugal's a very, very green country. They're very good on their carbon emissions and stuff like that. Even if you drive through Portugal, most of it's green, and it's healthy green. It's not like man-made or anything like that. Even when you go to the beach, the moment you step onto the beach, you have a choice of various bins you can pick up. You've got a little cigarette bin you can take with you to make sure that you don't leave cigarette butts. No way. You've got a series of like recyclable bins, so when you leave the beach, you can put your rubbish there, and then you've got little ones you can take with you as well. And that's how they keep their seas clean. And what I'm trying to say by that is they make it very easy for people to recycle. Like, even if you're lazy, there's no way you just have to be a bad person if you literally walk past the bins and look at them and think, nah, sorry, like, I'm not gonna, do you know what I mean? You are actively trying to damage the climate. But in the UK, like, even on underground, you don't have bins. Do you know what I mean? You don't make it easy for people to recycle, or even if you do have bins, they'll have like mixed recycle, rubbish. I know you're not separating my mixed recycling, so don't put mixed recycle, because I might as well just be throwing it in the rubbish. Doesn't make sense. So I think a lot of Western nations, in particular the UK, don't make it easy for people to recycle and actually be climate friendly, which means our carbon emissions are... Where do you see stars in London? You don't, because our air pollution is ridiculous.
I mean, is that the air pollution, or is that like the light pollution? Cause, like, totally off topic, but I was talking to someone the other day about how we should have like a night every month that we go like blackout, so everyone can see the stars. Like, and I'm not sure how practical that is, because then someone was just like, that's when all the crime will happen.
It's like a purge.
But like I like the idea that we could at least try and, see the stars.
Do you know what? Where I live now in London, the pollution's so bad, and they know we can't see stars, that they have installed a roof over my block that has fake stars. Like, it has lights in it that are meant to be fake stars, because they know people cannot see stars there.
But does that look anything like remotely?
No, it looks like I'm in a Rolls Royce car with just the shiny roof. It doesn't look like I'm looking at stars whatsoever. And it's a really, like, I look at it and I'm like, wow, I live in a capitalist society. It's a real wake up call sometimes. I walk outside and I'm like, no.
But like that's so, like, that's like the most neoliberal thing I've ever heard. It's like, oh, well, we pleaded shit, and so now we're just going to try and replace the stars with this light, because that's going to help.
And the light is definitely causing more pollution, because it's more, like, it doesn't make sense. The country's so backwards.
But do you think it, like, I've had this discussion with I don't know how many people, like, do you think it's capitalism, or do you think it's corruption?
I think it's corruption, because, quite frankly, I'm very much a person who's like down with capitalism, hate capitalism. But capitalism as a structure isn't bad. It's the fact that we've tried to install capitalism onto a society where not everyone's equal. You've got the whole thing of equity and equality. You can't give equal rights to people who aren't on an equal pedestal. Do you know what I mean? You've got rich and the poor. Make the poor as rich as the rich. Then try and install capitalism, and we will thrive. It'll be absolutely fine. But you can't install capitalism in a society where there's inequality, because the poor are going to get poorer and the rich are going to get richer. So I don't, as much as I'm like down with capitalism, I don't think capitalism itself is the problem. It is corruption and the lack of equality that we have.
Like, one of the things that I get, I'm not sure you're 100% right on the, like, we need to get everything perfectly equal, because that's kind of like, I don't know, because I have this debate with a lot of people, and it's like there seems to be like a level of inequality that's like, I don't want to say ideal, but like it's like optimal for like the functioning of a system. I think we're way beyond that at this point. Like the level of inequality, especially in Britain and America, is just stunning. I think it's like 2 people in America own the same amount, or like have the same amount of wealth as the bottom 40%. Like, that's disgusting. But there's like a level of I feel like people need like something to go like, right, well, I'm going to work hard and then I'm going to get a little bit better.
Yeah.
People need that.
You need a small variation, but the gap that we've got between rich and poor, right, this is what I should have said, when by bringing everyone, making the poor people rich, don't make them rich, but give everyone a certain standard of living, a set standard of living that people can then go up from, rather, but no option of going down. People can continuously go up. But right now, everyone's just going like, well, not everyone. You've got like 1% going up, and then the 99% of us going downhill.
I mean, I guess that's the argument for UBI, is that you want to create like a minimum standard of living.
Yeah.
I mean, say like, I don't know, people can survive. They have like healthcare, housing, and say like enough money to buy like basics, and then everyone can have that. And if you want more, like go and get it.
Because
like,
some people don't actually want more than that. Do you know what I mean? As well, a lot of people like don't want to live a lavish lifestyle. They just want to live a life where they don't have to worry about what they're going to eat the next day. Not everyone's like, oh yeah, I want to travel to 3 countries every year and I want to see the world. Not everyone's like that. Some people are more simple and just want standard life.
Yeah, they want to get like a
roof over their head.
Yeah, a roof over their head, and then they can like, I don't know, at least take the time to figure out what they're gonna do with themselves. And I don't know. Then I guess you get a lot of people being like, oh well, you know, people aren't gonna work if they, you know, they don't have to. And that's such a stupid argument.
It is a stupid argument, because I've been in situations where like where I've just not had work when I was doing my master's degree. I wasn't working for like a couple of months of it, and because it was my master's degree and I already had an undergrad in something similar, it was easy. I had a lot of spare time on my hands, and I would sit there and for like 2 days I was like, don't want to do anything, absolutely fuck all, just gonna sit here. Then after 2 days, I was just like, I'm going to start this, I'm going to start doing this, I'm going to start doing this, because you get bored and you've got opportunity at hand. You're just like, I've got time. If I've got the time to do this, why not? You try, you fail, it fails. You try again, you might come up with something amazing. And it gives people the opportunity to fuel creativity. If they've got like a sense of security that they know they've got a roof over their head, they can eat, they don't have to worry about things like that. People do have the time and like the ability to just sit there and be like, right, how can I make my mark on this planet? How can I make the planet better? Do you know what I mean? And then that also benefits other things. If someone's got a roof over their head and doesn't have to stress about eating and stuff like that, they can look at recycling. They can be like, right, I can actually take the time out to recycle now. Do you know what I mean? It feeds into so many other paths of life that, yeah, I do think that there needs to be like housing should be right. Like everyone should have housing, food, and UBI. Yeah.
What would you make of like? Whenever I see this discussed, then I see some people quite often. It's definitely like the pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which is a fucking stupid saying. But I see those people then arguing and saying, but sometimes people need the fear of like nothingness, of like just destitution to like motivate them.
Do you know what? I agree with that, because I've had a few friends that I've said they need to hit rock bottom before they realize what they're doing. That doesn't go for everyone though. Not everyone, and that's like giving a saying to people that are already at rock bottom. Do you know what I mean? You can't expect someone who's already at rock bottom to need to hit even further rock bottom to gather themselves up. They haven't even had an opportunity to experience themselves at their best. So how can they know that they can do better than what they're at? I do think that saying goes for people who are very egotistical and just don't see room for improvement in their life. If they think, right, this is the best that I'm going to do, then they do quite often need to hit rock bottom, and then they'll gather their shit. But I don't think that can be applied to a mass amount of people, because obviously a lot of people are they've just been rock bottom the whole time, so they need an opportunity to see what it's like at the top.
Yeah. Do you want to move that mic just like a little bit to the side, just because if you're speaking into the side of it, the sound gets a bit weird. It's
Did
like
I do it?
No, it's fine for now, but like you're moving like this way. And
Sorry.
like, no, it's just in my head that I just, I want it to sound as good as possible. But yeah, I definitely think you're right with some people that works and some people it doesn't. And I know, I guess the problem is most of the time with humans is like, well, this one thing works for everybody. Yeah,
it doesn't.
We're all people.
It's almost like the same. The generalization of advice for people. It's like how people also have this set timeline that you have to achieve certain things, and you're like, no, you don't. I'm sorry, but like I'm 23, and I know that I'm quite more advanced in the field that I want to work in than a lot of people my age. So
You're only 23.
yeah. So I know a lot of my friends, they're just like, don't know what I'm doing. They're still partying this, that, and the other, and they come back and compare themselves to me. They're like, oh, Klaudia, you've done this, you've done that, and I'm like, we've got different paths. Like we generally have different paths. Like I've gone through things as a child that you haven't. You can't expect that, right? I used to think as a child, I was like, by the age of 26, I'm gonna be married, I'm gonna have kids. I'm 23 now. If someone was to tell me that by the age of 26 I'm gonna have kids and be married, I would punch them in the face. It's not happening. So I just feel like there's a lot of general people give advice and they're like, yeah, no, but it's gonna be the same for everyone. And it's this like that piece of advice or being like, yeah, everyone needs to hit rock bottom before they think it doesn't apply to everyone. I would say, do you know what? People might get annoyed at me saying this, but I think that it applies. You know, you've got those people that are like, all these immigrants coming over here, taking our jobs. Those are the people that need to hit rock bottom because they're already like, they're just sitting there like, yeah, that ain't got to work. I got a benefit. Immigrants come, took my job, can't have it. And then they're the ones that need to hit rock bottom because when they get lower, they're like, right, I need a job now. This isn't cutting it. But not everyone.
So you think that the people who are saying things like that, they're like, well, can't get a job, it's all the immigrants have taken it, is like there's just an excuse.
Yeah.
Like they're just sitting there, they're just
It is
like secretly begging for like hundreds of thousands of like refugees because they're like, please, like give me an excuse to not have to work. Like,
but now that you say it like that, I'm like, no, not necessarily. No, because they definitely don't want them over here. But I feel like once they are here, they're like, oh, yeah, this is my excuse. This is my leg to stand on.
I mean, I don't think like there's probably at least one of those people. Like, yeah, like that person definitely exists. Like, yeah. But I guess it's yeah, you can't get like hung up on the one size fits all thing. That's one of the stupidest things. Like people, but again, some people guess they set themselves out this path and then don't really want to deviate from it. They're like, right, well, this is how it's going to go, and they have their train tracks, and they're like, okay, so this is going to happen.
Just a very tunnel vision motion. But I think that's the whole kind of like sheep mentality that people have. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like just following whatever someone's told you as a kid that this is what you're supposed to do. You've set yourself like a 5-year, 10-year plan, right? This is what I got to do. And then the moment something doesn't go according to plan, it's like your whole life crumbles, and that's no, why are you doing that? Do you know what I mean? Like anything can change at any given moment. Like, come on, we've just been told the planet's going to just go, the planet's dying. Do you know what I mean? And you're here worrying about, 10 years, I've got to buy this mortgage. Why? Don't. I tell people, live life by the day.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a good tactic.
The way society's going, don't plan for the future.
I think we've all been shown that like plans are, like was it life is what happens when you're making other plans, to quote Lennon. I don't think he was wrong.
No.
But I've totally had the same thing happen to me though. Like I had a really long relationship, and then it ended kind of abruptly, and like for like a month or so I was just like a mess. I was like, what am I going to do with my life? It's because, like, I don't know, I'd had, like, not everything laid out, but I was in, like, this, I was in, like, my stream of, like, okay, so I'm going to do this, and this is how it's going to happen, and, you'd started to, like, put together, like, a vision for how your life was going to progress, which, like, isn't a bad thing as such, like, it's the idea of visualization I really, really like, because it's definitely a thing. Like you can make stuff happen by like laying out your end goal, and then being like, your brain is amazing at filling in the gaps of how you get there. Like when I wrote my first book, I just told everyone I was going to write a book, and to the point where I was like, well, I got to do it. Which is I definitely buy that there's a way to like visualize where you want to be and then like get there, but without maybe planning the whole route.
Yeah. No, because when you get so stuck up on like intricate details of everything, it's like Jenga. Someone pulls the wrong block and everything goes to shit. Do you know what I mean? It's just like you're like, what do I do now? I have no blocks left.
Oh, that's a really great way of putting it. So yeah, you work for Bywire News, and I know you don't want to get like super deep into the blockchain-y crypto side of things. But what has been the most exciting part of getting to work for Bywire News? And maybe like, do you want to like give people like a 60 seconds, like what is Bywire?
So Bywire News is a decentralized news network that is stored on the blockchain. So essentially Bywire News is a UK based organization that brings together the work of independent media organizations from the UK, and eventually we hope to obviously broaden that out worldwide. And essentially what we do is we bring independent media content, whether that's articles, podcasts, videos, onto our site, and we provide our readers with basically the security of accountability, because everything that we feed onto our website is then stored onto the blockchain, which basically means that the person who's produced the content can no longer go back and change it, which is obviously something Dominic Cummings did with his blog post. When someone accused him of something, he went back and changed it. So it gives our readers the security that no one's gonna, if they see something, no one's then gonna go back and change it. The technology that we also have enables readers to actually make money from interacting with the content, and then gives them the opportunity to give that money to the person who's created the content. And it's really just all about promoting the work of independent media and being able to provide the UK with news that people know that they can trust. Every single partner that we have on the Bywire website is either regulated by Impress or the NUJ. And we've also made sure that they've gone through checks that ensure they're not financially dependent on any type of corporate agencies or the government. They're all independent. So that is a brief roundup of Bywire. Bywire is just great, and you should go and check it out at bywire.news. But in regards to your question about what's my most favorite thing about Bywire, I think my personal experience with Bywire has been a really good growing opportunity for me. So when I first started at Bywire, I actually was working on something called NBSN, which was a job I found on Indeed, which was meant to be like short YouTube videos, rounding up work from independent media organizations. So from what was known as the Media Fund back then, but now is the Independent Media Association. So it was basically collecting their work and creating video for them. The organization shortly started to go under just as COVID happened. It was not going well. And Michael, who is the CEO of Bywire, was actually an investor in NBSN at the time. And I quit NBSN, and he just kind of realized I was doing my master's degree, and he saw a lot of potential in me. So he was like, look, if you want to work for us, come, I'll make you a job. So I started working at Bywire. It didn't really have a job title. I kind of do editing, social media management, and then I also do like all of the admin stuff as well. But from starting working at Bywire, because Bywire had this idea of bringing all of the independent media partners onto the blockchain and bringing them under one roof, I basically went from being like a fan of all of these independent media groups, messaging them, being like, oh my God, I love your work, can I cover it on this? Emailing them, being like, right, do you want a meeting to talk about this and be on our blockchain? So, and it hit me pretty, obviously at the time when I started working for Bywire, I think I was 21. So it all happened really quickly, and I went from being like, oh my God, what am I doing, to being like, oh, I feel very senior in this position. And my skills developed drastically, because my skills in the stuff that I do now were limited because I just finished my undergrad, started a master's. Most people that get into this field of work have like 3 years experience on their belt before they do it. So I'm very grateful to Bywire and Michael for giving me the opportunity to be able to better my skills now, because now I present with them. Sometimes I do my own thing. So I think Bywire is just, it's doing a great thing right now, because obviously you've got the Independent Media Association as well, which has already brought independent media together in the UK. But to have this extra level of security, knowing that like no one can go back and change what they've written. And Bywire is also working on a fake news detector, which basically means that like if you want to detect a piece of fake news, you can go on our website and be able to analyze whether that is true or not. So, and I think in this day and age with everything happening, that is something that's very crucial. So yeah, Bywire is just great. I don't know what else to say other than that. It's amazing, and you should, like, if you're an independent media association, get on Bywire, get on the Bywire plugin. Our main goal is honestly just to promote the work of independent media, though. And I think the other thing about Bywire, prior to actually working at Bywire, I was familiar with independent media organizations, and I read their work rather than the mainstream media, but it really, really made me connected to the work of independent media organizations. And I was able to discover, prior to working at Bywire, I thought there was maybe like 7 in the UK. Now I know that there's like hundreds. And I speak to just under 100 of them. So it really, it gives you an opportunity to like separate yourself from the bullshit that is the government and the bullshit that comes from the mainstream media. I think me being as young as I am as well, I was still very susceptible to be caught up in the bullshit of the mainstream media or be lied to by the government and just be like, yeah, no, it's fine. Like, they're doing their job. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is what they need to do. It's fine. I'll be fine. But literally working at Bywire, I'm just like, yeah, no, this is all lies. I can't deal with this. So, and now I've become like an advocate to all of my friends. I'm just like, yeah, no, don't listen, don't read the BBC. Here's this article, read that, So, I think the fact that it's opened my eyes to the world around me, I think that's probably my favorite thing about Bywire. I've said like 3 favorite things about Bywire, but that's
all right. You're passionate about it. Tell me more about this fake news detector, because like as soon as I see stuff like that, I'm just like, because I'm like, I don't know. People like label themselves as like a free speech absolutist, and I'm pretty much with those people. Like false information can be countered, right? But censorship can't, because they just shut people down. And I always believe that the best way to like if someone is like spouting some rubbish, right? Like the best way to make anyone who's listening to them like realize that they're talking rubbish is to literally sit down with them and just pick them apart.
Yeah.
Like that's, for me, that's always the best way. I get really pissed off when people start censoring, because it's like, who are you to be the arbiter of of what is true and what is not? Especially when it's really difficult sometimes to like someone might write like a whole article based on one thing, and the one thing might be right, and then everything they draw as a conclusion from it can be wrong. But the one thing they said at the start they're basing their thing on is right, and then it's like, right, okay, so what you've done is like some of that's true and some of it's not. So do you stop people saying the part that's true, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to like work backwards with them basically. So unfortunately, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to tell you about it, because I've just recently heard about it. It's something that we've got in the works, but it essentially, from what I understand, I don't even want to say anything, because if I get it wrong, they're just gonna call me and be like, why did you say that? From what I understand, it will basically, if you come across a story that you believe to be fake news, you'll be able to run it through the fake news detector on Bywire, and it basically searches the web for equivalent stories, any other information on that topic, and analyzes whether that is true or whether it would be false. I don't want to say anything else in case even that is wrong.
No, that's fair enough. I'm just curious, because like again, like I'm totally down with people being called out for being like spouting rubbish.
Yeah.
It's just, I get uncomfortable when I hear that people are like, well, we're just gonna like shut this down, especially like all of the censorship going on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, and that like it started.
See, but the thing is, censorship on those social media platforms is always censorship of the wrong party, though. They never censor both parties. Whenever social media...
I think that's changing now, though, because like I've watched so it started with like 3 years ago. That was the first time they really started like removing people, and they removed Alex Jones like simultaneously from all platforms. And like the guy is nuts, fucking entertaining, like holy shit. And he's right, I think, more than he's wrong. But like he's clearly a bit unhinged. I'd love to go for a pint with him, because that would be hilarious. But it started there, and then it's progressed to the point where like everyone's like, oh well, it's just going to be Alex Jones, and then all of a sudden, then you're getting like, I've seen like, left-wing people being removed from Twitter and Facebook for having the wrong opinions. Like for example, a girl I interviewed, woman.
of that sex.
Yeah. She Maram Souslish, who is like a YouTuber who talks a lot about the Syrian civil war and the Palestine Israel conflict, and she's been like temporarily banned from Twitter because she posted about how she thinks that it's bad that you're allowed to deny the Palestinian genocide but not the Uyghur genocide, and because she's convinced that it's like a Washington think tank like psyop to make us all hate China.
Okay.
And it's like, I interviewed a guy about the Uyghur genocide, and like he seemed pretty genuine to me. that's just like what I think. But she was like pointing out the hypocrisy that you can say one is like not happening and not the other, and then she got like her account like frozen, and so yeah, it's really it's really scary.
See, but I they might be. Do you know what? Yeah, fair enough. They are more on it than before because even Katie Hopkins' account gone. Fair enough, but I still feel like I literally made an Instagram story 2 weeks ago, and all I said in it is, watch me take this shot. I was taking a shot of tequila. I got a COVID information banner at the bottom of my Instagram story because I said the word shot, and they were like, if you're passing fake information about COVID, we have to And I was like, I'm talking about tequila shots. But then 2 weeks later, my friend had posted this Instagram profile that had basically just been posting indecent pictures of children, and she posted a screenshot of the profile and was like, can everyone go and report this profile? They're not taking it down, blah blah blah. Now the pictures, obviously they were indecent. They weren't naked. They weren't, because you can't post nudity on Instagram, it would get removed. But the pictures were, obviously, loads of people were trying to argue, being like, how do you know that this is like a pornography site for children? If you went into the comments under the pictures, you could see grown men with families, married, commenting very vulgar stuff under the pictures. So me and about 1,500 people on Instagram collectively reported the profile for pornography and indecent images of children. I got a response within 5 minutes. So did all the other people from Instagram, saying, sorry, this does not violate our terms and conditions for the thingy. One girl was smart and reported Instagram and said that it was copyright because the pictures didn't belong to the profile. Took it down within 30 seconds.
No way.
So they are improving on it, but it's like they pick and choose what topics they want to do it on. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, if you want to call someone like a politician a liar or something like that, or if you want to get very political with like the left wing, right wing, then yeah. But like even what was it? Even only, I think today I read an article, or yesterday, that Twitter's only just responded to the racism that happened up following the Euro 2020. Like only just suspended loads of accounts, and it's like, how long ago was it now? Do you know what I mean? Like people were saying horrible things, people were sending death threats, and it's taking you what, 2 weeks to read something that literally says I'm gonna kill you, and be like, oh yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, I mean, I had like I was seriously pissed off at that whole thing because. Like, first of all, like, Twitter can if like you said, like you mentioned the word shot and they were immediately on it. It's like, are you seriously telling me you can't like take off people for like the like really vulgar racist abuse? Like, you seriously telling me you can't detect that? Like, are you actually serious? And then like like the article that was released by Twitter talking about it was so weird. It was like they said that like the accounts had been like the was from the UK, like more than from any other country. But they didn't say like how many accounts. They didn't say like if that would like how many that is, because that could have meant there was like 1 from 100 countries and 2 from the UK, or it could have meant that there was like 99 from the UK and 1 other country. And then we spent 2 fucking days talking about like. I saw something from Twitter that had said it was 5 accounts from the UK. And I was like, are we seriously? Like, it really frustrates me sometimes. I'm like, look, we had, England had like a great campaign in the World Cup, played some good football, got to the final. Really disappointed that they didn't win, obviously. Would have been great to see. Maybe would have, made everyone a little bit nicer to each other at the minute. Would have been nice. But then we spent, instead of like looking at 2 days worth of like, here's the great stuff that they did, we can be really proud of them. Like even I thought it was really beautiful the way they put all the flowers by the Marcus Rashford mural. And it's like, instead of that, like what you've done is you've given power to these like handful of people who decided to be really fucking disgustingly abusive.
Literally.
And you've given 2 days of news coverage to them. I couldn't believe like how caught up we got in that.
And it's a very triggering thing for people as well, like having to wake up. Then obviously a lot of my friends are black or just people of color, and I remember a lot of them like the day after the finals. I wasn't even in the country, but the day after the finals, they just turned off their phones because they didn't want to see. They don't want to be reminded that this is the country that we live in. Like a lot of people like this still exist. But no, it was just Twitter is very unfiltered as it is. Like, you've got racist Roman on Twitter just even without the Euros happening. So it's just, and I think then they upped the number of accounts. I think now it was like 8 accounts or something like that. And you know what's funny? You've got people on Twitter that will do more of the work than Twitter itself. People on Twitter found there was a guy who called the young boy, the 19-year-old player, Saka. He called him like a monkey or something like that. And people on Twitter found the guy's work, that he worked at Savills, as in the estate agents, contacted Savills, got a response from Savills, and got him fired from Savills. And Twitter hadn't even found his account, apparently. So it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, my thoughts are always just like why give power to these like handful of people? Like, I mean, I don't really like, I know, I don't particularly buy the idea that like Britain as a whole is really racist. Like, there's obviously some fucking idiots out there who are racist. But like, one of the things that I find actually like that was really interesting to me when I was writing my first book about Brexit was that if you go through, like, so that every year they do this thing called the British Attitudinal Survey, right? And they go through like loads of different things, like, and they've been tracking it for forever, like different attitudes to like having like being friends with someone of a different race, like a member of your family, like dating someone of a different race. Then they've done like stuff on like attitudes to like gay marriage, that sort of stuff, and you can like watch as the opinions like have changed throughout. And the gay marriage one was really interesting because like I can't remember what year it was, but there's like a really specific point, and then like people's acceptance of it just goes like through the roof. And it's really
like
cool how it just changes like that,
just...
yeah, which is like awesome. And they find that when they looked at like all of the places across Europe, is like Britain is like the most accepting of like people of a different race, like in day-to-day life. Like if you're going to be like dating someone, friends with people, like all of those, is like Britain's like one of the most accepting in the whole of Europe, which is like I find like really interesting and quite like heartening in a way, because like people can talk about like structural racism or like the way institutions are set up, and like that's a different problem.
Yeah.
But like on a day-to-day basis, at least, it was quite like it made me feel quite happy. I was like, oh, that's nice that like Britain is like pretty good like compared to the rest of the world.
I feel like that's also, it's because we're more exposed to different races though as well. Do you know what I mean? Like Central Europe isn't as exposed as we are. Obviously we've got loads of Commonwealth citizens and stuff like that, so it's just more common for you to see a person of color or a person of a different race. But London is still, like, the UK is thriving with diversity. I shouldn't just say London because I'm just very close-minded. But the UK is thriving with diversity, but you do get the handful of people, more than a handful, but you do get the odd few people who are just outright racist. And I do think that a lot of the time they're fueled by the fact that, obviously, like you said, you still have structural racism. That's, like you said, a completely different story. But when you've got little things in the system that remind people, right, yeah, I can be racist because the system's racist, that's what kind of keeps them going. Do you know what I mean? But I do also highly hope that it is something that will die out with generations, because I do feel like my generation and the generation above me and all generations below me are much more open-minded. It's very hard to find someone that, well, obviously you still find people that are racist, but they're much more open-minded to even being educated about issues that they didn't understand before. Like when the whole Black Lives Matter movement happened last year, I had loads of not loads of friends, but I've through my Instagram there were loads of people who tried to argue with me about the fact that like I'd gone to a Black Lives Matter protest being like, oh yeah, all lives matter, and I'm like, yeah, they do, but all lives can't matter until you put enough respect on a black person's life as you do on a white person's life. But people normally, if you would try to argue that point with anyone else, they'd just be like, no, because they're so set in their ways. But I think you've really, like, generations coming, like the generations that are growing up now are much more susceptible to being like, right, change my opinion. If you've got a valid point, I am willing to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean the Black Lives Matter protests, or protests, like whatever you want to call them. I don't even
movement. It's a movement now, right. Yeah.
And the marches, that's the word I'm looking for, that you had last year, was like a really beautiful expression of like how many people actually care. And like something that I found was really weird was that like people who had never given a fuck about racism were suddenly like on their high horse about it.
Yeah.
and that really pissed me off. Like
Performative activism.
yeah,
that whole
yeah,
kind of-
exactly. And like someone that like I know is definitely a little bit racist.
Yeah.
Like went to the protests, in Belfast in like one of the marches or whatever, and he then was like, why were I was like, well, I mean,
Why are you here?
yeah, I was like, why did you go when you've been like lecturing me about leaving the house because of COVID? But like you went to this march, and then he called me racist. And I was like, what? Like I remember watching like with horror some of the videos that came out of America, but like for like the last 10 years,
it's nothing new.
like Mike Brown, especially the Mike Brown case was awful. It was this guy who just got like choked out by the police. There was like, the names are absolutely escaping me right now, but
Because you're on the spot.
yeah, exactly. But like I remember being like horrified about these things for years, and like no one around me cared, and it's like, fair enough, like this is not your thing, whatever. And then for them to like turn around and like lecture me, I was like, well, screw you, man. Like
Realistically, if people like, if people, all the people that came out in the UK, I mean, let's not talk about America because they've got their own thing, but all the people that came out in the UK for the Black Lives Matter movement, if you really cared about structural race, well, not if you really cared, but if you were really familiar with everything that was going on, we had Mark Duggan back in 2011. We have our own experiences of police brutality, and there are loads of, even I think I remember I was in 2015, there was a protest in London for modern day slavery of black people. There was like 50 people at the protest. No one cared. Do you know what I mean? Because it wasn't out there for the world. People weren't shoving it down your throat to the point where a lot of people went to that protest because they were like, right, if I don't go, people are going to look at me and think I'm racist.
yeah,
You don't have to go to a protest. There's other ways for you to get involved. That's not, but do you know what I mean? Don't go and support something you don't believe in, because that's just, like I said, performative activism. Another point leading on from that was actually you had, I don't know if you saw, but when the whole movement was happening, there was the whole Blackout Tuesday thing. That boiled my fucking blood.
yeah, mine too.
Because I had friends of my own who were like, when I asked them, being like, oh, like, what are you doing tomorrow? And they're like, oh, nothing. I'm like, do you want to go to the protest? They're like, nah, thanks. Not even because of COVID. They just didn't want to go. I'd be like, fair enough. But then they'd post this fucking black square on Instagram with some long fucking paragraph being like, oh my God, now is the time that we have to care about Black Lives Matter. The police brutality is so horrifying. And I'm just like, but what is this black square doing? Like, you think a person who's been assaulted by the police is going to look at this square and be like, wow, so touching, thanks so much. And the most annoying part about it was so many people hashtagged Black Lives Matter with the square, and it absolutely filled social media with nothing but black squares. So even people that wanted to find out information about protests or look at the videos of shit that was happening, they couldn't, because I would scroll through my explore page or scroll through Twitter under that hashtag, and all you saw was black squares. And it's like, what goal are you achieving with posting the black square? Because it doesn't do anything.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely like virtue signaling of the highest order.
Yeah.
It's like, great, you posted that black picture, like, oh, we solved racism. Awesome.
Thanks so much. I actually got, the first march that I went to for the Black Lives Matter, I actually got into a physical altercation with this couple who, we were marching through Waterloo, I believe, and this couple, they weren't with us from the start of the march. They just hopped in because they saw we were like in the middle of the road, stopping cars. Everyone was peaceful. The couple jumps in, both of them white. They jump in and they just start being extremely loud. They don't even know what we're chanting. Like, they're trying to pick up on the chants, but they're just like, rah, 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 rah. And then we're walking past the car. That obviously the car's still driving. They're just driving really slow. And both of them start kicking this car. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you kicking the car? And obviously, because in my head I was like, right, this isn't, majority of the people in this protest are black. If police now come over and they want to start shit with us for apparently causing a violent protest or whatever, this person in the car is going to say, right, these protesters have kicked my car. They're not going to look for the two white people that are here. Do you know what I mean? We're already, the whole protest is because of police brutality towards black people, and you now think as a white person you're going to kick a car. Obviously you're not going to be the one that gets in trouble for it. So I literally, I kicked the guy back, and he was like, what are you doing? I was like, what the fuck are you doing? He was like, I was like, no, you're not. You're kicking a car. Like, you're not protesting. You're just being a hooligan for no reason. I was like, please leave. And he was like, I'm supporting the. I was like, you're not. I was like, no one wants you here. Just leave.
No, I mean, that's one of the things I get really frustrated about is like violent protest never fixes it. Like, the everything from like the people who were like setting Baltimore on fire last year in America to just any kind of like violent protest, to like the idiots who fucking stormed the Capitol on January 6th. Like, do you think those two things achieved the goals you wanted, or did that bring like more like brutality or more like policing powers from the
Yeah,
state?
because it just makes the state want to just tighten down on everything even more. Don't get me wrong, the only time I say react with violence is if someone's treated with violence. If you're being met with violence, then outright, or even like 2011 riots, those started off peaceful, got ignored. Do you know what I mean? They chose violence, then you respond with violence. But solely, you should never start with violence. I think peaceful protests are the way forward.
Yeah, because then you at least get the moral high ground. Like, like what do you make of the whole? Something that's kind of terrifying at the minute is the kill the
bill protest.
Well, the policing bill is the scary part.
Yeah.
But like, what's happened? Because we had like this beautiful wave of protest, when the bill was like first trying to go through the House of Commons, and then they shelved it for a few months. But then they've just gone past it again, and then it's like to crickets. Like, what do you think's happened there?
I think there's, I had a conversation with someone not long about this, actually. I think there's been a wave of distraction tactics from the government to pass through a bunch of bills through Parliament while everything's been going on. So you've, alongside the policing bill, you had the immigration bill by Priti Patel as well, which she tried to pull through Parliament while the whole Matt Hancock affair thing was going on. So I think the government's been doing so much fucked up shit that people are just forgetting. Do you know what I mean? It's like you need a constant reminder that, like, right, guys, remember they're doing this. And the policing bill is absolutely scary. Like, there's no other way to describe it other than scary. You can get, for knocking down statue of a monument, statue of a slave owner, you can get maximum of up to 10 years. That is the same sentence that you can get for sexually assaulting someone, and that's if you make it to court, because 9 times out of 10 you definitely do not make it to court. And that's scary. The time in prison that you can get for assaulting a police officer has doubled, even though a police officer in this country can still kill you with impunity. And is that the word that I'm looking for? That is the word that I'm looking for. So I think the policing bill is one of the most important things that they're trying to, not important, but like scarily important things that they're trying to push through Parliament right now, and not enough people are aware of it happening. I mean, even if they are aware, they just keep forgetting about it. I feel like a lot of people just, it gets pushed back to the back of their head because you've got so many other things being pushed in the media all the time. Like, even like you said, the whole thing with the Euros, like, do you know what I mean? That's another thing that people have to remember about. They're just like, oh yeah, racism in the Euros. Forget about the policing bill. And it's not something you should forget about, because it's going to really, if it goes through, we are going to end up living in a draconian state, but hardly being able to do anything. And then you've also got the...
not even like, you're not allowed to be noisy.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then you had the Kill the Bill protests in Bristol. I think the couple of people that got arrested there, amongst the total of them, they got 14 years in prison.
14 years?
Split between them, obviously, but I think there was only like 4 people or something like that, so it wasn't a lot of people to get 14 years. And that's just the start. The bill's not even gone through, so...
Yeah, and then I don't know if people have seen this. There was like an art group that had made some bits of like I can't remember if it was like statues or like murals, but it was basically like something anti the Tories, and they'd stormed the like art like building with like 30 police officers, and it's like people like, but what? Like that is a police state. Like that's...
We've got so many other things in this country that we need to be worrying about, like knife crime, for us to be worried about people. And I don't think people in this country protest enough, quite frankly, for people to be now trying like, oh yeah, we need to clamp down on protests. Clamp down on what protests? We need to be more like France. France, whenever they don't like something, they're just like, that's it, we're going out to the streets. They take it a bit too far, but...
But I mean, then the BBC don't, like, those yellow vest protests were going on for fucking, like, weeks and weeks and months they rolled on for, and the BBC... crickets. Like the thing that was really pissed me off about the BBC coverage is of the, like, there's been like months of like anti like lockdown and anti-vaccine passport protests, and like, yeah, okay, there's definitely a fucking bunch of nutcases in there, but like, I don't care what your opinion is on the protest. It's like, that is happening. There is like hundreds of thousands in some cases of people on the street, and they just say nothing. And it's like, that is just like, I don't care what you think of the protest. It's like, it's happening.
Just let people know that there's something happening. Yeah, no, the BBC is just a very... the BBC is just I think it's the worst of them all, to be honest with you, because the BBC is meant to be a public service broadcaster. They're supposed to provide a service to the public, and they don't. They just act as a mouthpiece for the government and nothing else. And they're the ones who are very much like, right, no, we're impartial. We're very impartial. We're non-biased. And quite frankly, total impartiality is bullshit. We're human. Every human has an opinion. The trick is not being impartial. The trick is letting someone know, right, I'm partial to it being this way. My opinion sways this way. I'm more left than I am right wing. Just be transparent with people and where you stand. So then when you give them the information, they know what perspective they're looking at it from. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I think the BBC is so problematic, because they're very much like, no, we don't pick a side. You do, and you're force feeding people. You're making people believe that you don't pick a side, subconsciously making your side their side. So yeah, I think the BBC is just. Yeah. BBC keeps quiet about a lot of things. Like, for example, the Andrew Marr show. How many politicians do you have go on there? And Andrew Marr's just there like, hello, say your name and tell me everything you want to tell the world. And then when you've got a Labour MP go on there, he's just like, no, you fucking... Like,
how are you going to pay for that? Like,
how are you the opposition? You're not doing anything correct.
Yeah. The BBC are a joke, if I'm honest. I'm interviewing, like, later on, a girl who works for BBC Panorama. And I'm not sure how much they're allowed to say about, like, what they do. Like, I'm not sure how much they're allowed to comment on the work of the BBC. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I want to ask her, it's like, what do you think when people say, hey, you're, like, propping up the establishment? Like, does that, like, I don't know, are you aware of these criticisms? Like, is this something you listen to? Do you realize that, like, your boss technically is like just an ex-Tory donor, or not even ex-Tory donor, like a current Tory donor? Like,
I almost feel like I feel like a lot. Do you know what? I feel like the BBC has so many employees that a lot of them get just as brainwashed as the general public. When I was young, when I first started studying journalism, I was like, yeah, my goal is to work for the BBC. Ask me now if someone offered me a job at the BBC, I would spit in their face. There is no way I'm ever going to work for those bastards. But yeah, no, I think I feel like obviously you've got the odd few people who are like very aware of what the BBC does, but then you do have people who are just like, what, young people who've been offered a job by the BBC, they love journalism, and then only 5 years down the line do they realize, they're like, wow, I've been feeding the public absolute bullshit for the last 5 years because they've been exposed to something else. Do you know what I mean? And if they don't get exposed to that alternative view, then they'll just carry on living under the BBC's little umbrella, thinking that, yep, I'm doing the right thing. You're not. You're not. Yeah,
I mean, like, it's interesting. Like, there's a family friend of mine who is he like does the obituaries in the Telegraph, I think. He's very like old fashioned, like very set in like his worldview, and he was in like the police and the military and stuff. So it's like, look, I understand why you are like you are, but he's like trying to help me in my career a little bit. He's like, he put me in touch with a guy who like does like PR work for people, and like to look at my channel and everything, and my podcast and stuff. And they both came back to me with like the same thing. They both said, it's like, hey, you know, some of your interviews are really great. They're a bit long, you know, people don't want to watch that. And, you know, if you want to work for the BBC or something like that in the future, like, you know, you should be editing down to like 3-4 minute segments. Like, that's what people want. And I'm like, you're in another world. Like,
this is not where I want to go.
Yeah, but it's not even that. It's like, I don't know. I always think that kind of attitude is like very, it's like quite condescending of people, or it's like, I don't know, you're like looking down on the general public a little bit. Yeah. It's like, and I've heard this point made quite a few times. It's like people are fucking smart. Like, they can handle a lot. It's like for example, they used to think on TV you could only have like your 20-minute like sitcom. You know, that's all people could handle. You know, people don't want like a really complicated story. It's like, you know, people want their 20 minutes, their story resolved in that, and everything is like self-contained, and that's it. Because, you know, people can't handle complicated stories. And then the biggest fucking show in the world was Game of Thrones, and it's the most complicated, like looking at the families and the different betrayals and all.
I can name every, like, the Starks, all of them.
Yeah, exactly. And like people have like a. People are way smarter than we give them credit for, basically.
You just need to engage them. That's the trick. You need to, and you know, as people as technology advances, our attention span lowers, so you really just need to figure out a way to engage them. But Yeah, no, people, like you said, people are way smart and people want information. But I feel like it's media that's made people dumber, because over time we've cut out information and we're just like, right, we're just going to give you the what, where, who, and why. And quite often they don't even give you the why. They just give you the what, where, who. And then you have to figure out the rest for yourself. And it's like, if that's all the information you're going to give me, that's all my brain is going to be used to taking in. Do you know what I mean? And then you have to take yourself out. Like, you have to take out you have to do it in your own time to actually research these things and get the information that you need, because the mainstream media is not going to give it to you. They're just like, right, this is what the government said.
Yeah,
that's what I'm going to tell you.
Like that's what's happened. And like something that actually happened earlier in the really early in the pandemic, and I was just like, hang on, this is a bit weird, this is a bit fucked up. Like the government, like, there was one day in particular, they had like a scheme set up that I can't remember the name of, but where they paid for loads of ads in all of the mainstream papers, just the mainstream papers, and then they paid them all to print the same headline. And it's like, it was about I can't remember what it was, something to do with like social distancing or mask or whatever. Like, fair enough, like public health, I understand why it's been done, but like just that idea that the government is paying all of the mainstream press is just like, is there a conflict of interest there? Like, are you not meant to be kind of?
It's literally like it's like them holding up a placard that says, "We control the media. Look at what we can do," and people are still like, "Oh yeah, no, we got a free press. We don't have a free press in this country." Like, please, just, if you're gonna take one thing away from this interview, just know that we don't have a free press in this country.
Like, how much do you think that the mainstream press are dead? Because like, there's two sides of it to me, at least anyway. And I was watching an interview with Chris Williamson, whose YouTube channel is Modern Wisdom. He does like a lot of like fitness, lifestyle-y sort of stuff. And he was interviewing Jordan Peterson, and they were talking about like the mainstream press, and they said that like the death of like the mainstream has been so fast that no one has even noticed. That like it's they've died, like their influence upon like my generation and like your generation, like you're, I guess, like I'm the tail end of the millennials, you're probably a Zoomer, and they it's just, to us, like it barely exists. Like, we don't sit down and watch the news, the 6 o'clock news every night. No, like we're not watching like what's happening on Channel 4, like whatever program they've got on, like the and even just papers, like read like. When was the last time you went, ooh, you know, I need to...
I don't even see newspapers on the underground the way I used to. Like, like a couple of years ago, you used to walk on the underground and be like, you would ask someone, are you done with your paper? You take it off them and read. Don't see that anymore. You just see people, you sit on them if they're wet or something like that. You don't. And even with my generation, for example, even when I see people posting articles from the mainstream media, they're talking shit about it most of the time, being like, what the fuck are these people on about? What kind of representation is this? And there is like this big culture on social media right now of the general public calling out the mainstream media when they do something wrong. Or like, I don't know if you've seen on Twitter quite a lot of the time, you have it happens a lot with race, and with matters towards race, when you've got Sky News will post being like, boy found dead, murdered by whatever, and the boy who's dead will be black, but they'll use a mugshot of him and then thingy, and then people basically quote tweet their headlines and like change the headlines, and they're like, think you meant to say or they provide them with alternative pictures. So people are very much like, fuck the mainstream at this point. But I still think there's obviously like a large portion of people who aren't, or even if they're not getting mainstream media from mainstream sources like TV or newspapers and stuff like that, they're still going onto their websites or onto their social media, so they're still getting what they're saying, but just from alternative. Technology has pretty much eradicated like traditional media. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, no one, like, even the most I'll probably say is like the radio, because like you go into a cab and if you're not playing your own music, you're going to listen to the radio. But
yeah, I mean, I feel like we actually in Northern Ireland we have that a little bit more. We've got like there's this guy Stephen Nolan, who's just like complete outrage merchant. Like he's just like the lowest common denominator of like, and people in the rest of the UK don't even get this, but like we still have a lot of fights that are about religion and about like the nationalists versus unionists, and like the joke that we make is like, it's themins versus usins, right? So it doesn't matter who you are. It's like, oh, well, it's themins. They're the problem, not usins. No, we're fine. Like they're the problem. and he's actually like really widely listened to, but I still feel that like there's an extent to which the mainstream press are still the ones setting the agenda of like what's discussed, and we have to like I don't know how we get past that, because we have to figure out, and someone in the UK, and I know Bywire are trying to do this, like needs to provide like a different source of media, especially like video news.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe you can tell me now about what Bywire are doing.
So no, wait, I wanted to comment on what you said first. I do agree with you. I feel like there's like a certain value with news, like people to pick and choose what's important to speak about, and it's only like once the mainstream media picks up on it, it's like, oh my god, we have to report about this as well. And I feel like do you know what? I'm gonna plug two of our partners right now who are very good with video work, and actually quite often, like for example, you had the protests in Colombia. I didn't know about them until one of our partners, Alvarado, made it. So they pretty much do like Latin American news, and they did a video on the protests in Colombia, and it wasn't until like 2 weeks after that video did the mainstream media cover it, and then I saw loads of other people picking up on it. Then we've also got Real News and Real Media. They both do video work. Real News, Real Media, often covers work with like Extinction Rebellion and Palestine Action as well. So they do a lot of that kind of work. But yeah, no, there is definitely like it's like the world doesn't care until the mainstream media reports on it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we know it's happening, but like how important is it until they pick up on it? But
everything's dangerous conspiracy theories until they say it's okay.
Yeah. And it shouldn't be that way, because it's why do they get to pick and choose what's important? Because quite frankly, a lot of the time they're going to pick something that's not important, or something that's just going to distract you from something that is actually important. But I do feel like I think a lot of our independent or a lot of Bywire partners actually are able to, a lot of them are investigative, obviously organizations, so they are able to get that information, like certain push out certain stories before the mainstream media get them. I think even Bywire, we pushed out a story that ended up having to be picked up by the mainstream media because there was so much backlash about what we had discovered. It was something to do with the Matt Hancock, Health Secretary, having stake in a company that got a COVID contract or something like that. It was his sister's company or something like that.
Oh, how lucky.
Very lucky. By the way, I hate saying cronyism, because cronyism is just corruption. It's just a sugar-coated term for thingy. But yeah, so we basically...
Can I just interlude there? Anyone who is listening to this and who is not furious, and like I actually mean like blood-boilingly furious about the amount of money that has been given to donors and mates of the Conservative Party under the premise of like fighting COVID, should be just like, because they have stood on the fucking graves of the people who have died to hand the money to their mates. Like, that is the most abhorrent thing. And it's not just like random ethereal money, because like as much as a government's like, yeah, budget doesn't work the same as a household, it is going to be paid for by you and your kids and your grandkids, and they have just stolen that money under the premise of like taking care of you, like.
And they're trying to make it back by like doing a £20 cut to universal credit and other shit like that, all because like track and trace was an absolute disaster. The amount of money that got thrown into the absolute mud, I'm pretty sure we could have solved homelessness with it. There's so many things. There's so many things you could have fixed, and it's got thrown into the fucking ground. Like
they're flying a helicopter on fucking Mars for $2 billion, and track and trace.
Wasn't there another thing the other day about Boris? Do you know what? No, the way this government spends money is absolutely ridiculous, and people should, like you said, people should have their blood boiling, because it's not their money. It's taxpayer money. We're here like, oh yeah, you have to pay your taxes. Oh yeah, for what? For you to just throw money in the dirt. Oh yeah, so Bywire picked up on this story about Matt Hancock handing this contract, and because we wrote the story and so many people were outraged by it on social media, loads of people started basically tagging the BBC and all these other mainstream media outlets, being like, why are you not covering this? Why are you not covering this? It's like outright corruption. Why are you not covering this? So they were forced to basically cover it. I think a couple of mainstream media outlets did something. Even UK Fact Check Politics, whatever they are, that little organization, they did the story, and they had the audacity to put the Independent as the source when we were the ones that did the story, because they couldn't even that little bit of credit could not go to the independent media. And I was just like, do you know what? fuck you. Fuck you. You have the audacity to call yourself UK fact check and politics, and you can't even give us the credit. But
yeah. I mean, I think the rise of the like fact check thing has been really dangerous. Like, because the BBC will just do like fact check, and then people like now automatically think it's like, oh well, they're telling the truth. It says fact check, and then it's just like
until someone changes the fact 5 minutes later. I think there was even a story about one of the health ministers basically saying he said something wrong, but he said something so wrong that it could have completely spun the whole of the UK. I had my friends sending me the article because I was vaxxed. So they were like, oh yeah. Basically, he said he meant to say that 60% of the people who were getting admitted were not vaxxed. But he said that 60% of the people that were getting admitted were vaccinated. And all of the Reuters put it out. So many different mainstream outlets had put it out as that was the headline. Health minister says 60% of people getting admitted are vaccinated. My friends were sending it to me being like, haha, why did you get the vaccine? So stupid. You see, you gave yourself to the government and you're going to catch COVID anyway. And I saw people screenshotting it, posting onto Instagram being like, all you people that got vaccinated, what did you get vaccinated for? Literally 2 minutes later, I refreshed the Reuters site. There was a news story being like, correction, and I was like, see how quickly you can send the world into turmoil, and especially considering how volatile people are with the whole vaccine thing. You've got so many anti-vax people that I was just like, that is not the right thing to do. Like, really, just proofread what you're saying. Do you know what I mean? Just double check it.
I think that speaks to like lazy journalism as well now. Like most people who are working for like the Telegraph or any of those like mainstream papers, like they're not actually doing like journalism like as such. They're just like repeating something that someone else.
Because if I had heard that, I would have been like, "Are you sure that's what you meant to say? Did you mean to say 60% of all people are like what?"
Where were the people in the press conference being like hello?
That doesn't sound right.
yeah. I mean, and like you said, like it's such a like people are like what was it? Joe Rogan put it beautifully the other day, actually, when he was talking about it. He said, like, people, it's like when you are like leaving your house and something pisses you off, like you've had like a fight with your girlfriend, and then you leave the house and then your like bins are in the way of the car and you like clip them and knock it over, and then like you're leaving your house at 8, like and then you get in traffic and you're like, fuck you. You get like really animated about it, and like everyone is like on basically everything at this point. I don't know, they're all at like they're at 8. They're already there with that level of
just waiting for time to send them over the edge.
Yeah, which is not good for the world. I think everyone probably just needs to calm down a little bit. It's like, if you've had your vaccine, sweet, awesome. You don't want to get it.
That's
like, fine.
That's like my housemate is kind of, she's not anti-vax, but she is. Do you know what? I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. One of my housemates is anti-vax, and she got
like,
police.
Is it like is it this one specifically, or is it like all vaccines?
This one specifically. Okay. She doesn't agree with which I totally understand. I understand her reasons for it. Every other vaccine in the world has taken years to develop, and now all of a sudden we've whipped on this one out of nowhere. I get it. There are reasons for people to be against it. There are reasons for people to be pro-vaccine. But she actively will send me like stories of things like of people going through things because of the vaccine, or like different articles about things that have gone wrong with the vaccine. And I just sit there and I read them and I'm like, just stop. Like, I'm not here sending you pro articles about why you should get the vaccine, or sitting at your bedroom being like, get the vaccine. Because I don't care. Do what you want to do. That's why I believe that the vaccine is the right thing to do, but I'm not going to be telling other people that. And I also don't believe that forced vaccines are appropriate. No one should be forced to do anything. So that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, I mean the thing, like I know we said we'd maybe mention this briefly, is like we've talked about like how horrendously corrupt the Tories are, and we've talked about like the sort of oncoming police state with the policing bill, and things like their threats about like trying to prosecute journalists
the
under
official the new developments on the Official Secrets Act. I was going to actually mention that earlier. That's just and the thing is, this is why I mean, another thing, I don't think people the whole thing with the Official Secrets Act, I don't think like the general public even picked up on that. Like, I saw a few people talking about it, but no one's actually understood what it means. And I think obviously the whole thing that you've got today, you've got Julian Assange's case as well, the appeal against this case. Then also you've got the thing that happened with Craig Murray recently, and I feel like you can kind of see it happening already. Do you know what I mean? It's coming into place, but now that they're trying to push a bill forward to let you know that like if you're using documents that aren't qualified to be used, that is just bullshit. How else are you meant to publish information unless you've got a leaked document? That's like you telling a police officer, being like, right, you can't use that criminal to tell you information. Like, you can't use an anonymous source. If journalists can't use an anonymous source, then a police officer should not be able to use an anonymous source either. Do you know what I mean? You can't, it doesn't, it's just really much, it's a very clear sign of the government prohibiting the journalists from being able to hold them to account. Not that the mainstream media does it anyways, but it's now like basically just a slap on investigative journalists and the independent media, because I feel like they know what we're trying to do. You know what I mean? They're like, we're going to stop you guys before you even get there.
Just make that just like a little bit closer to your face there. And I don't get, and if anyone is watching this and can like help me understand, because I see Femi, actually, I'm looking at you specifically because you piss me off about this. It's like you can tweet and make videos about how the UK government is authoritarian and fascist and really dangerous, and like, I'm not sure fascist is the word I would use, but like they're definitely authoritarian and very, very dangerous right now. But you're fine with the vaccine passport thing, and the thing that concerns me is not the idea that like people should like get vaccinated, right? The thing that concerns me is that the NHS app has the capacity to have your information about your family, about your lifestyle, about your criminal behavior, and best of all, your alleged criminal behavior. And when that is on the thing, the pass that is like granting you access to places, it's just like, please stop being so naive that the Tories won't abuse this. Yeah. Like, that's so scary.
It's going to divide people even further from the rich and the poor. Do you know what I mean? It's just going to divide, like, you can have alleged crime of theft because you couldn't afford bread, and then you're not going to get let into somewhere because you're a supposed criminal.
Or it's not even that. It's like, look at the policing bill. It's like, you can, like, they can, if they have that, they can be like, well, we're alleging that you were at that protest and that turned violent and we had to shut it down, and therefore, you know, we're going to take some of your rights away. Oh, well, you shouldn't have been at the protest.
No, I didn't actually realize that you could even access the pass, like the vaccine pass, in the NHS app until recently. I just had that little card that they give you when you get the vaccine. It's literally a paper card. I thought that's what I needed. And when I traveled to Portugal, they were like, let me show me your vaccine thing. And I just took out this paper card and they were like, this isn't it. I was like, yes,
they didn't take the paper card, really?
They did after a while, because I didn't realize I had anything else. I just argued with the woman. I was like, listen, this is what you get in the UK. This is what the NHS is giving me. This is what you're getting. So they let me through, but then after, when I came back, someone told me you can get it in the NHS app, and I was like, that's ridiculous. I was like, that's really ridiculous. Like, I've had so many other vaccines, and I'd have never been given a pass. Like, I've had the BCG twice. Do you think someone gave me a pass being like, yeah, just so you can, do you know what I mean? Like, you've had a rubella vaccine. No one gave me a pass to show people that, like, right, hello, I can come into this country, got my rubella. No, just give me a stamp in my passport, like other things, do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. And to think that, like, do you know what, I would maybe a bit more like, vaccine passport to travel the world while COVID is still active. I understand. Yeah, fair enough. While it's still active in whatever countries you're trying to travel to. The moment it stops being active, no, let me travel wherever I want. The vaccine itself then is futile. I don't need it anymore. What was the point? Do you know what I mean? I only needed it to prevent the virus. But the idea of needing a vaccine to get into a fucking nightclub or a pub or
it's not even the idea that like you need the vaccine specifically to get in somewhere. It's that you have to scan your thing. That's the part that I'm like, that's going to get abused. It's like the Tories have abused every single thing that's possible. Like, they have prorogued Parliament to stop debate. They tried to like force through their like Henry VIII powers when they were trying to pass the Brexit bill. Like, they have like whip out the authoritarian handbook and just like tick off all the things that they're trying to do, and then but they're totally not going to abuse this. Like, that's the opinion that confuses me.
If people are just very clueless, though. That's why that's like what I said to you at the beginning. People are like all it takes is for politics is show business. All it takes is for Boris Johnson to put on a good show and people get very caught up in what's happening. Like, the fact that,
How
like,
do you think he is still how do you think the Tories are still polling at like 40%? Like, what is your, like, why do you think that is? Do you trust the polls? And like why do you think they are still polling that high?
First of all, I would not 100% trust the polls. I went viral on Twitter in 2019 because I was meant to vote for the first time in my life since being in this country. I've finally got my citizenship, etc., etc. Prior to that, I was a Polish citizen, so I couldn't vote. Got my citizenship. They sent me a polling card 4 times. I called them. I was like, "Can I vote?" They were like, "Yes, like, we've run you through the system. You can definitely go vote." Went down to the polling station, and because I had gone down and I had my Polish passport in my hand because I hadn't received the other one yet, and I needed some form of ID. I took it out, and the woman just saw the front of my passport and saw that it wasn't English. I was like, "You can't vote." I was like, "Yes, I can." And they were like, "No, you can't." And I was like, "Yes, I can. I'm a British citizen. Like, you can run all of this through the system. Yeah, I'm a resident. I'm a citizen. I'm of age. I literally live down this road. I can vote." And they started a whole a thingy with me telling me that I can't vote and escorted me out the polling station. I went onto Twitter, wrote about what had happened. About 50,000 people had retweeted it, and about 2,000 people from across the country had messaged me saying that the same thing had happened to them. A girl had messaged me saying that a separate girl had messaged me saying that she had gone down with her whole family, and they all had British passports, but one of the people took their French passport with them instead because they just couldn't find their British passport. Everyone with the British passport was allowed to vote. The person who took the French passport, they were like, "No, you can't vote," even though they had citizenship. And they were born in that country. They only got a French passport because they wanted a French passport to have on the side because they were a French nationality. So I don't think that the polls are necessarily reflective of everything that goes on. Another thing to do with the polls, I think a lot of the time, I know I definitely did this with the 2019 election. I was like, Labour's going to win because everyone in London was voting Corbyn. But I didn't look past London or like past the cities. In like the more rural parts of England, people are conservative. Even poorer people are conservative because that's just there's certain ideals that the Conservative government pushes forward that
they believe is like the most important.
Yeah, they think that, like, yeah, right, this is what I want to do. I also think now they're going up in the polls because there's no real opposition. I think Jeremy Corbyn gave us a chance of actually standing up for the working class and shit that people believed in. Whereas under Starmer, it's just like you've basically got a weaker Boris Johnson. Do you know what I mean? At least Boris Johnson's standing in what he believes in. And he's like, yeah, this is what I want to do, even though he U-turns literally every single one of his decisions. But he's bold in the kind of person that he is. Whereas Starmer's just like, he's just a bit soft. Do you know what I mean? He's just not really anything. You can't. And that's the thing, like, people want a leader, even if he's not a good leader. Boris Johnson is more of a leader than Starmer, and that's why I also feel like Trump was president for so long because, like I said, politics is show business. If you know how to put on a show and you know how to engage people and make them believe what you're saying, you might be spatting out absolute bullshit. But if you get people so riled up and excited in what you're saying, they're going to be like, right, no, this guy's going to make a difference.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that like I got really concerned about. Like I noticed it early on, like that when Boris was like, or sorry, Mr. Johnson, I shouldn't do that, because he's not my mate. He's a very corrupt politician. But when he was first running for leadership at the Conservative Party, there was like some clips from Have I Got News for You when he was a host that came up on YouTube, and I like clicked, and I was like, this be interesting, like what he was like. He was really funny. Really entertaining.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And like, do you remember that thing where he came out with I cannot remember what the scandal was, but he came out to all the journalists with the tea in front of his house.
Yeah.
It's like, that was really funny.
He was an entertainer. And that's like the same thing if you look at Trump. Trump was a TV personality before he became president.
Yeah.
And they've been the two most like damaging yet influential leaders that both countries have had. And that's because politics, like realistically, if politics was politics for what it is, actual policy, Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn would have been elected a long time ago.
The only hope, dream.
But because people are so focused on like being entertained and quite frankly, I think people are addicted to drama, especially because of the media so focused on only telling people negative news. News to people is only tragedy. There's no such thing as good news, really. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hard-hitting news is hard-hitting news. So people are very prone to being told bad stuff and negative things. So electing someone that's constantly going to give you that, do you know what I mean? It brings excitement to your life. And quite frankly, a lot of people's lives don't have that. So they force it.
Yeah, you can see the US media like scratching around for the new Trump, because like they've no idea what to do now, because he was like the ratings beast for so long. You can see them like searching for their new villain, and they've tried like Tucker Carlson and what's the name of that congresswoman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think her name is. And but they can't get anyone that's like that has the same, I don't know, like click rate.
Yeah.
Who was like, and
they're literally memes. They are memeable people, and especially that's the thing in the generation that we live in, a social media age that we live in, being able to be changed into a meme or a GIF automatically installs you into the minds of young people, and that's where it's scary, because if you're someone as entertaining as Boris Johnson, I've made memes of Boris Johnson, do you know what I mean, and I find them funny, but I know what I'm making the meme of. But if my 12-year-old brother was to see that, he's just looking at that picture being like, that guy's funny, not looking at what his actual policies or what his ideals are about life. He's just like, that guy's funny, I like him. So I mean, my little brother definitely, I had an argument with so many times because he saw so many Trump memes. He was like, haha, Donald Trump, can I get a Trump t-shirt? I was like, no, you cannot get a Trump t-shirt. Like, no, and I had to give him like a 2-hour lecture being like, no, we don't believe in Make America Great Again. We don't like Trump.
Oh, I mean, the memes, like, and like, they were really funny. Again, that's the like I said with Boris Johnson, is like that was the problematic part of it. It's just like, he was so funny. Like, one of the funniest things that I ever saw about Trump was it was a beautifully made like piece of like memeing. It was like a video from, you know, in Toy Story when they have the scene where the songs like Strange Things Are Happening is playing, and it's like all the stuff changing from like Buzz, or from Woody to Buzz. They had it like changed from like all the stuff changing from like Hillary and Democrats to like Trump stuff, and then there was this moment where it like changed from like Hillary, like the poster of Hillary on the wall, and then like prison bars appeared over the front of it, and I laughed so hard because it was really funny, and like and that's like what's happened to politics, and that's the worst part of it, is that like the memes now run the world. Yeah. Like, literally. Not serious like discussion, the memes.
Yeah, no, if you are able to make a good meme, you can win a whole campaign. If you just have that one meme to run on, and that's where social media is really powerful, but it's also very scary. I think meme culture itself has implications that are very harmful, especially to younger generations, because people don't acknowledge the sheer amount of power that they have. And quite frankly, I read somewhere, because I wrote an article on this as well about meme culture. I read somewhere that a lot of a lot of memes actually originate from subreddits with racist origins or homophobic origins, but people just don't know what they've been made, like what the idea behind making that meme was. So then when they circulate back on social media, everyone's like, oh, they're fine. They're not. They've got something behind them. Even
like the Pepe meme.
Yeah. Like Pepe
Pepe the Frog.
Pepe was so problematic. I love Pepe, but so problematic.
The question I always have about that stuff is this: like, look, if the intention or if the meaning of the thing is no longer like, if the undertones or where it began is no longer where it's at, is it still problematic? Do you know what I mean? Because you can, there's loads of stuff that you can like say, well, that like the origin of that was bad, but it's not like where the origin is no longer what it means. And because of the way, especially that memes specifically actually like evolve and change, like, is that still, do you think, problematic?
I think you can separate. I think some, like for example Pepe, obviously if you completely remove that kind of meaning behind it and use it as a soul for humor purposes, then obviously no, because you're not associating that with it, and so it means that people you're passing it on to won't associate it with it. But there are certain memes. For example, there's this image, I don't know if you're familiar with it, there's this image of a black woman walking past a news reporter, and she's looking at them with a really, really salty face. She's like screwing them. She's like, and people use it all the time. Like people will be like, oh, when someone asks me this, and I'm just like, the meme actually originated from when Grenfell happened, and loads of news reporters showed up outside, and the woman was a resident of Grenfell, and she was pissed off because she was like, why the fuck, I'm about to cry because I'm very emotional about Grenfell. She was pissed off and was like, why the fuck are all of you here, but you can't, no one can get anything sorted, like you're just all here reporting on the tragedy that's happened, but we've still got so many people missing and no one's trying to find them. So that, I think in that sense, that is where I think separating the origin from the meme is actually quite harmful, because you're then passing around a very tragic image and people are making it into a joke, and then that kind of, in my head, in my opinion, it kind of diminishes the seriousness of Grenfell. Any memes that come out about situations like that, it's just like, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? You see a meme about Grenfell, you're like, oh, we're over Grenfell now. Like, there's a meme about it.
Where'd the money go? Where are the new houses? Where's the change in the law? Where's all the investment that's going to make sure it doesn't happen again? Yeah, like Grenfell is fucking tragic.
Honestly, great. What I think recently really hit me about Grenfell is the blocks I live in, made by Ballymore, the same developers that did Grenfell. Absolutely ridiculous. If you see where I fucking live, to think that they made it ridiculous. Even that sky pool that they've recently installed in Nine Elms in London, between the two fucking skyscrapers, and it's literally, it holds loads of water. It holds, loads of people can go in there, from like about 50 people can go in there at once, and it's sturdy. It was made by the same developers that did Grenfell, and it's like, you're telling me you can't make a building, and the only difference between that was Grenfell was in a poor area and it was council housing, and this is for the rich people. And it's Grenfell is an absolute tragedy. It's very much a slap in the face to the poor community of England from the government being like, we really just don't care about you.
Yeah, like and like it for me, that was probably I thought that was when Corbyn was going to win in 2017, because like when Theresa May went down and the residents were basically just like, well, fuck off, and then she didn't really talk to them, and then like there was Jeremy Corbyn like in amongst everyone, like hugs, like comforting people and like trying to at least people can like go at him for like, I don't know, being down there for like the press, but like I didn't get the sense that that's why he was there. It wasn't like Boris Johnson visits a hospital and he's got like 50,000 like reporters behind him. Like I genuinely think that Jeremy,
do you know what, you could say that about Corbyn. If Corbyn, you can look back at Corbyn's like history. There are images of Corbyn, like a 20-year-old Corbyn being at protests. If Corbyn was doing it for the media, he would have been having someone do you know what I mean? He would have started from back then. This is genuinely something that he's just passionate about. But Corbyn's a people's person.
Yeah, and but he's still doing it. I saw him. He was speaking at like a protest last week about what's going on in Palestine. He was out on the
Liverpool
streets today. Yeah, in Liverpool. Exactly.
Yeah, he was at the Julian Assange thing today. Yeah, no. Corbyn, do you know what? Corbyn is the people's prime minister. He's, even though he didn't get elected, I think a lot of people in this country still look at Jeremy Corbyn and are like, you were our only hope. Yeah. And it's kind of, where have you gone? If it's not you, who is it?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the few politicians that I actually believed. I actually think he cared about what he said. And like, I actually felt like he believed what he was saying.
Yeah.
And that's rare. Really rare.
He just seemed like I'd never met him in my life, but I wore a Corbyn hat at a party once because I was so supportive of him. I went to like a nightclub and I put on a hat that I thought said Compton. Okay, I thought it said Compton. Found out 2 hours later, I've been going around to people being like, do you like my hat? And it literally said Corbyn, and this was definitely in like 2019 when everyone was like either Corbyn or Johnson. And I was just walking around this party like, yeah, supporting Corbyn. But yeah, do you know, I think the thing with Corbyn is that he was just a human. He was human. He felt stuff, unlike a lot of these politicians that are just fueled by money and greed and nothing else. Corbyn was like, right, I'm just like every single one of you guys. And he, from a very young age, like I said, you could see that he was just involved in things. He cared. He just cared about what he had, what was going on in the world. And what happened to him is absolutely disgusting, obviously. But I think a lot of people thought that Corbyn was going to get elected. Because
I was hoping.
I was like, yeah, Corbyn's definitely. I remember arguing with all my friends. I was like, no, there's no way the Tories are going to win. Definitely won. But that's when I realised that like not everyone is as progressive in the UK as you'd think they are.
But his policies are popular. Like they've like massive support. That's the thing that confused me. I mean, I guess it was probably the vilification. Like,
Yeah.
and I also think that like the vilification was part of like the Mail and the Telegraph and everything, and like like all the press still do it, and they like turned Jeremy Corbyn into like this culture war figure, where they were like screaming about like all of the most crazy people on the furthest left of the Labour Party you can imagine, and it's just like those people. That's not what's on the manifesto. That's not like what Corbyn really espouses, like, and they managed to turn it into this like culture war thing that then turned people off. Do you know what I mean?
They made a huge something out of nothing with Corbyn. Like they picked out. I think Corbyn was a very difficult person for you to actually criticize, because what the fuck did he do wrong? Nothing, pretty much nothing. I mean, obviously we all make mistakes, but we're all human. So the mainstream media really just were picking at strands with Corbyn, being like, right, this is what we have to push. And I think what else played a big part in that is the Conservatives spent a lot of their campaigning on social, like a lot of their campaign money on social media, a lot of it.
They really learned in 2019.
They were like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And I think that's what had such an impact on thinking, like, while Corbyn was very much involved with people, obviously he paid attention to social media as well and had his own digital campaigns and stuff like that. But while Corbyn was very focused on being there with the people, you can't be with everyone at the same time. So if you're putting so much attention into social media, there was obviously people that probably were just like, don't really know know Corbyn, don't really understand his policies like that. And all I know is, oh yeah, I should vote Conservative, and then the Conservatives telling you all the things that are bad about Corbyn. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, it's like, well, we're going to believe his opponents. They're totally telling the
he's
truth.
Definitely anti-Semitic. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
The least racist man probably in this country, but he's definitely anti-Semitic.
Yeah, that was the one that really got me. I was like, how do you still buy the press? Like, how do you still, like, this is another thing. Maybe we'll finish with this actually, because we've been talking for quite a while. I hadn't noticed. But I don't get, like, where do you think the breaking point is for people when to say, oh, because I don't know, like especially the last 18 months, I've watched the press just do the worst job that they could have possibly done about all of the entire pandemic, but like everything else, and I've been sort of noticing it for like a couple of years, like how bad they are. But like now, whenever I turn anything on or read anything from the mainstream, I'm just like, it's all just lies. It's all lies. Like it's like people make the joke about people getting red pilled about like the mainstream and press and the establishment and everything. There's like, it really happens. It's like once you've like seen how bad it is, you can't like unsee it. Like sometimes I wish I could unsee it, but like
ignorance really is bliss. Sometimes I sit there and I'm like, why do I know as much as I know? Like I wake up every morning and I just like, why am I here? Why do I have to deal with this? It is like that, like you said, the Matrix, the whole pill situation. Yeah. Do you want to know how much you know, or would you rather actually just be ignorant, oblivious to it all? And quite frankly, I feel like with the way the world is going right now, I'd rather be oblivious to it all, because there are moments where I grab my head and I'm like, what the fuck do you do? Like, what do you actually do? Because the moment you try and do something, like my whole thing with even why I became a journalist, I was right, I'm going to become a journalist because I'm tired of talking shit about people and not actually doing anything. Become a journalist, next thing you know, the government's clamping down on journalists. What the fuck do I do now? Join the government and take them down from the inside. Watch them impose a new law being like, right, if you're Polish, you can't join the government, sorry. Do you know what I mean?
Is that real? Oh, wow,
no,
yeah.
No,
I was like, shit, have we started to try that? Like, it's not like fiction is so close to like reality now.
I know. No, it's ridiculous. No, I think that, what was the question?
When do people wake up? Like, what is that point where they think, wow, they're just lying all the time, constantly? Like, I don't understand how they maintain credibility in any, because like people can be like, oh yeah, well, they're all lying, and then something pops up on the BBC and like, oh wow, oh that's interesting, that must be true. Like, do you know what I mean? Like they can go from like 1 second being like, well, they're all liars, and then like you send like they read an article, they're like, oh well, what's in the paper? So
I think people might just be so confused by it all that they just don't know who to believe anymore. Do you know what I mean? They're just like, right, well, I'm going to believe them on this, I'm not going to believe them on that, and it gets confusing. But then at the same time, I feel like there's obviously certain things that like you just know that they're not really going to lie about because they don't care about it themselves. Like, for example, take celebrity news. Do you know what I mean? No one's really going to feed you a bunch of lies about, well, the BBC, a celebrity news site probably would, but like the BBC is not going to tell you, oh yeah, like, oh, they did this, that, and the other, because they don't care. Do you know what I mean? There's only certain things they care to lie to you about, but I think it's very difficult for people to actually be able to, unless this is something that you're actively aware of, and you constantly remind yourself, like, right, I can't believe what the mainstream is telling me, I can't believe that this, that, and the other, then that's the only time that you're going to be able to differentiate and catch yourself out believing things that you shouldn't be believing and stuff like that. But if it's not something that's on the forefront of your mind, then it's very easy to slip up and be like, oh yeah, no, the BBC's not lying here, it doesn't seem like it, this seems quite, do you know what I mean, it doesn't seem too far-fetched, it seems like I can believe it, and then you're just kind of stuck in this limbo of like, what the fuck do I believe? And it's very dangerous. I think it's not somewhere you want to be, but at the same time constantly reminding yourself, like, right, don't believe the mainstream. It makes me, I do that, I wake up and I'm like, right, you can't believe what the government's telling you, this, that, and the other. I sit there and I'm like, I sound like a conspiracy nut. Like, I'm just constantly reminding myself, don't believe this, don't believe that, but you have to. There's so much disinformation, fake news, all of this stuff constantly you're being bombarded with, that it's just like, who do I believe? Do you know what I mean? And that's why it's very, very important to not believe one source of information. You go out, you seek all the different information there is, and you make a decision for yourself. And that's whether you're wrong. At least you're just one singular wrong nut.
Yeah.
Not a mass amount of people.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like it's probably better to be wrong and willing to be corrected.
Yeah.
Than, because, you know, no one's going to be right all the time. It's difficult. I guess, do you think that like especially your generation, like the Gen Z, do you think that they are like particularly like awake to how screwed up like mainstream media and news is?
Yeah, I do. When the Black Lives Matter movement started last year, I remember seeing a quote from someone that basically described our generation as the last generation. That sounds very morbid, but it was basically this idea that, like, statistically, our generation has the highest suicide rate. And it basically said something like, you gave the most, we're also the generation that's been exposed to the most technology and stuff like that. So the amount of information we're able to take in is astounding in comparison to the generations before us. They were very defined, like tightly knit onto what they can take. I can literally find out what's happening in Japan within 30 seconds if I just ask someone on Twitter.
It's like staring into the abyss.
So there's so much information. So it was the combination of the fact that we've got high amount of suicide rates and how much information we're taking in, and someone basically said that you've given the last generation something to die for, and it's basically this whole idea that, like, our generation is so fed up of everything because we've been exposed to all of this stuff, and we're very aware that climate change is happening and the authoritarian state is happening as well. So we're like, okay, we're running out of time, we're getting more information, we might as well do something about it. So I do feel like my generation is very much like, right, we're going up in smoke, we're going up in arms with whatever's happening. We're going to challenge the mainstream, we're going to challenge the government, and I'm so grateful for that, and I'm really, really grateful that it's my generation that's like, even the generation below me, you've got Greta Thunberg and all of the other climate activists.
She's definitely like in the same generation.
Okay, is she?
She's like, is she not? She's definitely 18.
Oh no, she's not. Oh yeah, because when she started, she was like 13. Do you know what I mean? So I'm still, in my head, she's still 13, but yeah, no, she's definitely 18 now. So right, Greta, you've got her and like all of the other climate activists as well. They're all young. Most climate activists are not people over the age of 25. They're all under the age of 20. So I do feel like my generation has. It's got this deeply rooted sense of anger, I think, at the government and just those in power, that we've just had enough. And we've literally got the information and the resources to make a difference at our fingertips. Like, we can start a petition like this, we can start a fundraiser like this, we can protest like this, you can go and volunteer at a border where immigrants come through at borders and stuff like that. There's so many opportunities for people to get involved, and it's very easy to get the information about them as well. So yeah, I do feel like we're more woke, as you could say, or more well, I hate the word woke. I hate the term woke, but yeah, I would say my generation is more woke than the ones before.
I mean, I'd like to detoxify the word conspiracy theorist, because normally that just means anyone who's saying anything you don't like. Now that really irritates me, because it's like, look, right, there's the there's the like lizard people, like David Icke people, and it's like, yeah, they've probably lost, like there's a few screws short of the toolbox there, right? And then there's like the people who are just like super hyper skeptical of like government power and everything, and you're like, that's not the same. Like I'd really love that to like people to realize that like those two groups of people are not the same.
Yeah, no, because that's like one of my housemate's boyfriend describes it. He's like, yeah, I'm a conspiracy theorist, like I believe in conspiracy theories, but if you mention anything to do with the whole and if you mention the thing about the conspiracy theory about the lizard people, to him you're just like, what the fuck? No, it's ridiculous. And I'm like, so see, it's true, you do have like, I don't know what the term you just used was, other than conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, like
just very.
There used to be people. There was the conspiracy theorists, right? And then there was the woke people, right? And that word has been stolen.
So now you should
woke used to mean like awake to like how corrupt the world was.
Yeah.
And woke now means like, I don't even know. It means that.
I feel like I associate it with just being very, very left wing. Like if you're woke, you're just
but it's not even
all
like
the way to the left.
It's not even like economically left wing. It's like really, really socially liberal.
Yeah.
Which is like totally different to like people who are like really economically left wing. There's the square. Like people like to think of it as like an axis of like one line, and it's like it's there's two. There's the square. Have you ever tried that? Like the political compass test. So like there's more. Like people are more than just like one dimension or two dimensions. You know what I mean? But like, have you ever heard of Strauss-Howe generational or intergenerational theory? And this book called The Fourth Turning. So basically, it was these two guys, Strauss and Howe. I can't remember their first names. So they wrote this book like back in the 80s that said that now it's focused on America, but I think that like the same principles apply globally. They basically felt that like human societies go in like cycles of like 80 to 100 years, 4 generations basically, and that you get like a big crisis and then you start the cycle again. So you get like the first one is like where everyone's like invested in the institutions and like everyone's like really like about like building up society and everything. So they pointed at like the Second World War as the last time this happened, and like everyone's like, you know, bought into the system and how it works and everything, and then like slowly over the next 4 generations it like degrades and degrades and the institutions degrade and like people's trust in them like falls apart, and eventually you get like a new crisis, like a revolution, a war, something, and then it like starts again. And they predicted in the 80s that we'd be coming to the end of the current cycle around 2025. Like, are we coming for like revolution? What, like, is there some like monster fucking change coming?
Do you know what I had a similar theory of my own, and it kind of links back to climate change, and it's this. So like, you know how we've had like the ice age, and then you've had the dinosaurs being wiped out by the thing. I think this is nature's way of getting eradicating humanity. Like our cycle, our like century or whatever is done on the planet basically, and they're just like, get away. What is next? It might be an ice age, it might just be sea creatures the whole time, and then land comes back up again after that. Do you know what I mean? But I do believe
sea people
sea people, whatever, sea men, mermaids. But yeah, no, I do believe that there is we do it. Everything in the world, in my opinion, comes back in a full circle. Whether it's something as small as you saw someone last year and a year later you end up bumping into them somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? I do think everything has a circular motion on the planet, so that would make total sense for it to kind of go that way. And the way things are going right now, there's natural disasters, civil wars going on all over the place. We're clamping down.
It's getting a wee bit end time.
Do you know what I mean? It is.
You know,
we are getting that vibe.
Like fire and like the earth like boiling and the ocean, like what was it? The ocean was on fire there in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah,
and then...
last year we had swarms of locusts in like 3 different locations, and I was like, yeah, no, right, we're definitely out. Like this is it.
Yeah. And then you got the fucking like the thing that really weirds me out. Like is like you got all like the climate disasters going on, and the locusts, and then the plague, and then like with COVID, and then the thing that really weirds me out is the mark of the beast thing. That is like you can't buy, sell, or trade without the mark of the beast, and I'm just like, it's the vaccine passport. Like like as crazy as that sounds, in my head I'm just like, there's way too many things happening.
No.
Like, and I'm not like a religious guy either.
But it makes sense though. No, it does feel like we're gonna have the end of the world, like the end of times is coming, and that's when I saw the swarms of locusts last year, I was like, yeah, no, this genuinely feels like a rapture. Like that's it. Next, the Earth is just gonna open up and just swallow us whole. Like it's a very far fetched. But it does feel like something is coming to an end. Whether it's like something's gonna go up in smoke. Do you know what I mean? Something's definitely gonna happen. The way whether it's gonna be the public responding to the government's bullshit over the years, or whether it's just going to be the earth giving up on us, whatever it is, I do feel like something is coming. It just kind of feels like it's brewing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that seems like a nice and rosy place to end things. Klaudia, it's been so much fun. Thanks very much. Do you want to tell people where they can find you, your work and stuff? Just I
get to plug myself. Right, so you can find me on Twitter at Klaudia Fior, KLAUDIAFIOR. You can find my articles at just go on my Twitter, and then if you go into the bio of my Twitter, you'll be able to find it there, because I don't remember my whole URL. And you can find me on Instagram at Wavy, WAVYUTE. And then you can find a lot of my work at Bywire News as well, bywire.news.
Awesome. Thanks very much.
Lovely stuff.
Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the podcast. Don't forget our sponsor, ExpressVPN, and my book, Brexit, The Establishment Civil War, can both be found in the links in the description below. And also, please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. It's the best way to help us grow. Until next time, thanks for listening. Screw the hedge funds.
You can make as many rules as you want, but if there's no teeth behind them, what's the point?
Well, like Citadel is potentially just gone in a few months. It feels like financial institutions, that they are all laughing at us by buying GME. Screw the hedge funds. Like, I will lose my entire investment if it brings them down.
Why on earth, last May, could you buy the entire company for $200 million?
What's been happening on Reddit and in social media and in the marketplace has never been seen before.
I argue that nothing is off the table. There is nothing off the table when dealing with the volumes of money in something as big as the United States stock market.
The hedge funds have clearly underestimated a group of people raised on Friday night World of Warcraft raids.
Dark pools, they're another mechanism to manipulate and cheat. Mainstream journalists don't say these things for a number of reasons. One is their sources are the people that I'm talking about, and so they can't call somebody a crook.
Superstonk and the other communities that have emerged are a hive mind, the likes of which we have never seen before. It's madness and brilliance, insanity and genius all rolled into one. It's very possible that Citadel will be gone in a few months. And not just Citadel, but the entire financial system has the potential to come crashing down. These crooks continue to gamble recklessly with the world economy, and this could be the moment that they finally get their justice.